Now, before this season started, we all thought that there was no way in hell the Atlanta Falcons were not going to win the weak NFC South. Well, for the first 2 months of the season, the Falcons looked as good as advertised. They looked like dark horse Super Bowl contenders for a minute. They were 6-3. They had an impressive win against the Philadelphia Eagles. We all remember that spectacular game that Kirk Cousins had Thursday night against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But, the hype has tremendously come down for the Atlanta Falcons over these last 3 games because they currently are losers of their last 3. And the more this season continues to near the finish line, the uglier it's starting to get for the Falcons, man. With this loss to the Chargers today, you lose 17-13. You are now 1-4 against teams with winning records this year. And Kirk Cousins single-handedly costed you this game. He had 4 interceptions. He threw a costly one in the red zone. He had a bad pick 6 on 4th down. And he had 4 total interceptions to end this game. And over the last 3 games that the Falcons have lost, he has 6 interceptions and no touchdowns. You have to bench him at this point. I get it. You gave him so much money in free agency. You don't really want to rush Michael Penix in. But at this point, your season is on the brink of spiraling left. And you're at a point where it's do or die next week against the Minnesota Vikings. You lose that game, there's no reason to believe that the Falcons are going to make it to the playoffs at that point if you lose to Minnesota, because then you look at the Buccaneers team that is now starting to get more healthy, and with their win over the Panthers, they now are tied for first place in this division with you. And you know that you're not that good of a team when the team that you swept in your division is tied for first place. The Atlanta Falcons are not a well-coached team. Raheem Morris, it looks like he's one of those coaches that everything he says on the podium makes you believe that he's going to be a great head coach. But when you see the product on the field, it leaves you shaking your head. He's supposed to be a defensive-minded coach, and yet the defense has struggled for the majority of this year. Now, they played their best football today against the Chargers. They had 5 sacks against Justin Herbert, who has a really good offensive line, by the way. And with how well the Falcons played, I thought they were going to win this game. I was like, I know Kirk Cousins is struggling with the turnover bug, but eventually he's going to wake up and the Falcons are going to hang 24 on the Chargers and eventually walk away with the dub. But that never happened. Kirk Cousins just continued to dig and dig and dig a deeper hole for Atlanta that they had to crawl themselves out of, that they were unable to do so. And with your season on the line, you gotta make a change if you're Raheem Morris to get some energy back in this franchise, to get some juice back in this locker room. And going from Kirk Cousins to Michael Penix looks like the right decision to make. It's not like Michael Penix was a project coming out of Washington. This was somebody that most analysts and draft scouts out there thought was good enough to start day one for any franchise. And he was supposed to be playing for the Las Vegas Raiders right now. So if you're going to draft somebody like Michael Penix this high and you're not going to play him with how bad your season is starting to go, to me, it just is a sign that the Falcons are an incompetent organization. And when I picked the Panthers to win this division, it was a bad pick in terms of me going with the Panthers. Ideally, I probably should have went with the Bucs. But my whole premise with that take was I don't trust the Atlanta Falcons. This team always felt like they were too good to be true to me. They got a talented offense. You get Kirk Cousins, who, when he's playing his best, he's a top 12, top 11 quarterback. And with all the pieces they had on defense, Justin Simmons, Jesse Bates, the best safety duo in the league. A.J. Terrell's a really good corner. You get Matt Judon. The Falcons look like a really good team. It looked like on paper there was no way, no chance they should miss the playoffs. But now we're entering week 14 of the year, a time when teams start to separate themselves, and the Atlanta Falcons are separating themselves in the worst way possible as a team that they were fool's gold to start this year. They're having what we all like to call the infamous second half collapse. 6-3, 3 weeks later, you're 6-6. Right now, the Falcons, I just don't even know what to think right now. Because the Buccaneers, they could win out and they could get the 9-10 wins, and you could end up going from 6-3 to finishing 7-10, 8 or 9. And I know Falcons fans are going to say, well, JT, look at the easy teams that we play. With how bad you're playing, you can't be trusted to beat anybody, good or bad. No game is a sure thing for the Falcons to win when you gave the Saints interim head coach his first win ever. The Atlanta Falcons right now are leaking oil in the worst way possible, and I'm off the Falcons bandwagon. I've tried to be patient. I felt like they were going to be able to turn this thing around, but maybe next year Atlanta will finally be able to live up to expectations. But they might be a team that just does better when they go under the radar, because anytime you have any high hopes for Atlanta, they always let you down. And another thing is, I feel like Terry Fontenot needs to get fired. He's done a really bad job of drafting talent on defense. And although the offense has a lot of pieces, just defensively, they don't have enough. With all of the guys that they've invested draft picks into on that side of football, they don't really have too many high-level players to show for it. Atlanta, they were fool's gold, people.